Hey everyone, and welcome to an episode of Community. I have Ben here, and Ben and I are going to chat about something that we've implemented in our business that has been an absolute game changer. And I love bringing Ben on to the podcast because we are actually like doing the work in the business. Like Ben is like really like instrumental to making sure that Maria and I function as business owners and humans, I think, actually. And so with that in mind, every time I bring Ben on, we always choose really, really tactical topics. And this one was huge, which was our content days, which definitely changed our business and totally transformed how we showed up online and made things so much easier, which, I'm excited about. So welcome, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I feel like this is going to be kind of like a bit building on, in some ways, like some like our episode where we talked about like how we doubled our podcast downloads in 2026. But this is like not just a podcast topic, but we think it really lends well to if you do have a podcast, if that is like the way you're choosing to show up online. But even if you don't, and you're finding yourself being like, wow, it seems like I'm putting a lot of effort into showing up on social, and I still find myself like, you know, like not having the best content to work with or having to scramble for like that last post. This is just kind of us just sharing like, hey, this is one thing that really worked for us in 2025 that we think could really be helpful to a lot of people in 2026. We're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Forever. Actually, I was saying yesterday, I sent you a screenshot from one of our clients texted me kind of being like, how do you show up so much? And then she like listened to one of our other podcasts and she was like, oh my God, you batch record your content. And Ben isn't like this when I say this out loud, but I am usually pretty far ahead on the podcast. We have space to be able to like move things around. But that's the only way that we've been able to kind of keep on top of it because it used to actually be, I think Ben, kind of before you took over my podcast, content looked really different. Like maybe we could talk about that, like what it looked like before, which was a lot of kind of last minute recording. Tons. Like, you know, I'd be like, oh, you guys want an episode next week? Like, let me get on that. And then Maria and I not really having a ton of real content. Like, it wasn't like we didn't have a lot of like strategy behind it. So maybe tell us our pre-existing state. I won't be offended.
Well, actually, I mean, I feel like you got to see that more than me because it was, I guess, the pre-existing state. But yeah, I think like a lot of people that we see like even like launch their podcasts, like it starts where it's kind of like, oh, I have this like great vision for like how I want to show up online, and it was similar to you. Like I think like we see a lot of our clients kind of like mirror even like your podcast journey in a sense, where like you kind of start with a bit of like messy action on it, which we like love and we think is great. Where it's like I think that my audience would benefit from a podcast, and I show up well in front of the mic, and like I'm just gonna get started, and that's awesome. But what often like the issue with that is like sometimes you start and then you kind of underestimate the emotional energy that it goes into recording yourself a lot or showing up online more than you were before. Podcasting is like definitely like it's a energy intensive kind of way of doing things, but it's also like incredibly efficient when you do set aside those like batch times. So I guess like for us, like before content days, we kind of it was kind of like we kind of filled things as needed. We kind of like think about the strategy, and then we would try to figure out if we had the resources to fulfill it, or if we'd have to go and kind of seek them last minute. I think it results in a lot of stuff that feels a bit more like stock. It's it's less face-to-face content. It's more us kind of like using old pictures or plugging and playing different things, and like you can still have like some good content and having some branded content that way. But what we knew this year was that we wanted to really lean into like the story behind our business, who we are, founder content, and kind of like building and sharing the journey of building for people who might be a step ahead of us some places, but a step behind us some places, or 2 steps behind us, or kind of riding with us. And I think this has really allowed us to do it in a way that's like feels way more attainable, because like the reality is like you can't do this every day. But you can do this for longer. Once a month. So that has kind of been our strategy. Is we've had content days going since I think February of last year. So really kind of coming up to close to basically a full year of doing this, and it's been pretty like cool to like not have to worry about like where our next posts is coming from. We just like have like really good content kind of all the time. And it feels like with that batch content, you can be choosier, right? And then like the quality of it kind of like increases as well. So it's not just like easing like the burden or the mental load, but it also can improve the quality. And I think that we've seen that this year as well.
Totally. Yeah, big time. I think it's been actually really cool, and we'll go into what the content days are, but like yeah, it's been cool because we've gotten an opportunity to batch like a lot of stuff in advance and like, but then also respond to trends and like, but we have more creativity to respond to trends because we're not like in it every day. So Maria and I are like basically almost never making content unless we're showing up in stories in real time. Like it's a very like planned out, strategic, and then we're able to kind of work from there, which we've loved because Maria and I were the Hot Mess Express, and for a long time we were managing the Social Snippet page. But I will say before we get into what is a content day, if you're listening to this, we actually also saw really good results in our stats this year. We just, Ben and Pravi, who's our internal social media manager for us, which, by the way, we outsource our social to our own team. Like, we can't do it all. They came back with like a huge report. Like this was like the slides were like 40. I was like, what could you possibly have to say in 40 slides? And there was so much good stuff in there. And what we found out was like a lot of the work and prep that we've done this year has resulted in really good follower growth, engagement. We're actually seeing way more leads come from social than we've ever seen. Great link in bio clicks. All that's reflective of our content, which I do think kind of stems back to this because of the strategy that kind of goes into this. So why don't you, Ben, tell us what is a content day?
Yeah, so I mean, it can look like, I guess, I'm sure it looks very, very different for different teams, but this is about the Social Snippet content days and kind of our model. So for us, like, we view a content day as either a full day or a half day. It kind of depends on the month because like this is flexible and it doesn't need to fit your needs. So it's often been a full day for us, but sometimes we've had to like scale it to a half day because things get busy or we didn't need actually as much content that day.
Or I was pregnant and I got tired.
Yeah. That was real. Yeah, that results in some of our half days.
One time Ben is just such a straight shooter, which I'm obsessed with. But one time Ben was like, "How much effort do you really have in you today?" And I was like, "You're right. It's only until 12 p.m. You're right. Yeah."
It's good to set. Sometimes it's good to set expectations too for your content days. I think it's good. Like I think even in the beginning too, with like we scheduled a full day and we realized, hey, we actually like. Even if we have the full day, like it's actually better for us to like space it out a little bit and not go back to back to back and kind of see our energy like deplete off. And it's been helpful to kind of like even figure out. Basically, the only way to do this is through trial and error for you or your own team or whoever would be a part of your content day is to figure out actually like what's attainable in a half day or what's attainable in a full day. And for us, like at the beginning. It really was focused on like recording podcasts in person. We knew that we wanted more podcasts, even of you and Maria specifically, together. And you guys just like have like better energy and record typically better podcasts when you're just like together in the same room. So we're like, how do we make that more attainable? So we're just gonna try and like kind of bite the bullet and schedule basically 12 days right now, 1 day a month. Typically kind of like at the beginning to middle of the month. It doesn't have to be perfect, and if you miss one, just reschedule it. But where you guys could meet up, and so that's basically what it looked like for us was a half day or full day of predominantly you and Maria podcast content. And then we would, as we kind of got better at it, we started to add in some we do like 2 or 3 podcasts, and then we would do some short form videos, or we would do a few podcasts, and then we'd focus on B-roll because we realized that our reels we didn't have enough content for like the next month for that. And then it kind of just helped over time as we figured out like what we do best and what we need for the thing for the content day or for that content month. I would try to just come prepared basically with like, here's like the things that we need to execute the next 6 weeks of social, and then that way we're always ahead and we're always planning typically 1 to 2 months in content in advance, and like when we always just have like an overflow basically to the point where our content is good because when there's a bad piece of content, we just don't post it because we don't have to. Or when there's like a really timely thing that comes up, we can just bump something else down the list, and it just helps us to be even more ahead rather than kind of just like riding that line between behind and like just on time, which is fine. It's just like it does create more stress, I think, mentally. And it it can lead to some inconsistency online and some less quality posts. So yeah.
Yeah, and like going over some of the benefits of it, of course, are like saving time. We're so lucky we have Ben on the team. So Ben like does a lot of the prep work for us and kind of comes with some ideas. So even like, for example, this was a Ben idea. Ben came with kind of some like concepts to talk about, which you can definitely outsource to a team as well. It also created a lot of consistency across our platforms. Like we're able to kind of see like messaging, talking about like, we love to talk about LinkedIn. Ben and I love LinkedIn, Instagram, like all of these different things. And we were able to see like what content resonated. The other thing is that it really helped me and Maria kind of show up at a higher level. So Maria and I, again, like most business owners, you start and you do everything, right? So Maria and I were like making the content, filming each other, like doing the things, setting up shitty cameras. Now I'm like, I come in and I'm like, Ben, I don't know how to do any of these things. Thank God you're here. But it allows us to show up more as like CEOs rather than like, being super frazzled. And we also have like a lot of purpose behind the stuff that we talk about now, which I think is important. And not to say we still do a lot of timely content, right? Like stuff will come up and we're like, we need to talk about that. That's new. Like in between our content days, and we're still able to do it, but we're not burnt out from doing it where we're like making content all the time, which was what we were doing before. And it also makes the collaboration amongst our team so much easier because it's less like, oh, I have this idea for a post, and then we get a graphic designer on it, and then another person's like writing the caption, and then you're like maybe posting it or whatever. The vision is behind it. It's a lot more like strategic, where we're like, we have Provi working on different things, you're working on different stuff, me and Maria are working on stuff. So yeah, it's been such a good benefit to our team, and I would really recommend, like, if you're struggling with your content and you're feeling like burnt out by it, this is an awesome solution. Why don't we go through maybe the planning of it, how we like plan one? And I will say royal we on this one. I put them in the calendar because my schedule's the busiest, but that's pretty much my extent of planning it. But why don't you tell a little bit about pre-planning, and I can go over the setup.
Yeah, well, obviously some of it's like kind of intuitive in terms of like you gotta show up and you gotta make content. But I think like some of the key like pre-planning things are you kind of want to pick like some obviously strategic topics. So I think like what that looks like for us is we see what content from the previous few months like engaged really well, and we're like, what are like kind of like the the fringe kind of adjacent topics, those near touch points where we're kind of like, oh, like maybe we could expand on that because people are really engaging with that. Yeah. It also can be as simple as like going, doing some SEO research using like SEMrush or different SEO tools, even just using like chat, just using some AI help to go in, especially if you have like kind of custom channels set up where you're talking to it about like business problems or you're talking to it about content, going back and being like, based off of the content that my audience seems to like, you can obviously like upload some past content up, like give them your links, be like what are some like topics that like my audience might like. And I don't think that should be a good ending point, but that is truthfully how some of these podcast topics are created. Is using AI, being like, our audience is liking these kind of topics, can you like give us an outline for this, can you like help me like title this in a way that might kind of like give me a point where I'm like, oh, like that's kind of the angle that I want to talk about this with. So that's kind of like the topic thing. You want to come with like a few strategic topics, and don't be like hard on yourself if you don't stick exactly to it. But it's really good to have like a few like kind of strategic priorities that guide the day. So you don't just show up and just kind of like chat with your co-founder or chat with your employee or chat with your guest for 2 hours and then kind of be like, oh, what are we even going to call that? What are we even going to use that with? It's like, where are we at this moment in time, and what content can we film that would best serve our audience for the next 6 weeks? What questions are they asking us? All that kind of stuff. And then the second thing, once you have the topics, is like obviously to get a space. And I think the space is like can be overrated because in a sense, because like, yeah, you don't need a fancy podcast studio to create good content, but it also can be underrated in the sense that like being able to like show up in a new outfit, in a new like visual space does actually like help keep engaging online. Totally. It shows you kind of as an authority. It shows you that you're busy, you're moving around, you're doing different things, and it's just like visually more like engaging to see that. So I think choosing a space is not always the exact space. I think some kind of consistency is good. We use this space a lot. This is in the co-working space where we work, and it's a great podcast studio. But sometimes we choose different spaces because we don't want all of our content to look the same. This is awesome and it's convenient and it's actually enabled us to do more of this, which has been great. But we don't always want to show up just in this space where people think that we've just recorded one pod. We've only had one content day for the whole year. Actually,
Yeah.
We didn't sleep or something like that.
We went hard.
Yeah, exactly. You want it to look visually interesting and keep that in mind. Obviously, you want it to be a quiet space too, where you kind of have a good background for that stuff, and then you got to plan your tech setup. So there are lots of great like podcasting places around, like the one we're in today, where the equipment kind of comes for you, or if not, you kind of got to makeshift that yourself. Our answer has been the DJIs, and that's really enabled us to kind of do. I think this wasn't like the year-end episode, but you called it "Make Your Own Podcast Studio" or something. But you can do that with like travel mics and iPhone cameras and tripods. You can use DJIs or whatever you have, and kind of to make a podcast studio or a content studio wherever you are. But yeah, I think like an interesting space with good lighting is also important, and that's kind of the main things that go into the pre-planning is like what am I going to talk about, and where am I going to talk about it, and then I guess the last question would be who you talk about it with. Our content days are typically just more like internal team, and we kind of set up different opportunities for you to do guests. We called, I feel like somehow we've called those podcast mornings versus content days, but they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some planning obviously that would go into that as well, but and that's also a great way too to make that less exhausting in terms of getting guests is to be like, I'm gonna be here all day on this day. Who can come and doing that, and then you have 4 guest episodes, which like that could be such a hassle to have to schedule 4 different times to go 4 different places or to meet them online. But having 4 in-person guest episodes is super valuable, and it's definitely less work, I think that you'd say, is to do them all at once. So
yeah, totally. Which actually kind of brings to the next point, which is like the day of, which is like one, staying focused on your plan, I think is really important because it's like, me and Maria, we're like little squirrels. So we like have so many ideas and so many things we want to do. But like us being like, okay, here are the things that like we need to get done. This is the most important. And Ben actually helps us kind of prioritize that because Maria, you guys know this if you've listened to before, little projector. She doesn't have all the energy for these types of things. So like we see her start to dwindle to the Lord as the day goes on. So we start with like the most important stuff, most crucial, and then we move it. Well, I have a lot more energy for these types of things more sporadically. And even just like taking breaks, typically we'll like go for lunch, like we take a little bit of time like to do stuff. It's a great way for us to get our team together. But it doesn't have to be like super intense. Like I think the way like we do it is really, I think it's fun. I don't know if you find it as fun as I do, but it's one of my favorite days. We come, we hang, and it's pretty positive. So I really enjoy it. Why don't you go through the post-production? I can do the next piece.
Yeah, I think like that's something you gotta be a bit prepared for is like when you film all the content at once, you do kind of get like you get to batch the actual showing up, but you also are kind of batching the work on the back end too. Yeah. So for us, that's kind of my job, and like that's part of what I need to be aware of is like to make space after that to kind of sort through the files and figure out how are we gonna use this, when is this gonna go out. Organize the files and kind of just make sure that everything falls into a place and you're not filming content and then not utilizing it properly. So that's kind of like almost equally as important as creating the content is like coming up with a plan for it. And then we do some of the planning, as we kind of said, on the front end of like what do we need. But then once we actually know what we get, I like to set lofty goals from what we're gonna get, and then have like kind of like I would love us to do 7 podcasts, but realistically we're probably gonna do 3, and then afterwards it's like what 3 did we do, and then figuring out like what are the best uses for those pieces of content, and putting those into our content schedule, and just making sure that those files are organized. Nothing gets lost, and you're actually capitalizing on the effort that you put in, because if you're not doing that on the back end, then a bit wasted effort to batch it. So
totally. And actually we've come across like so many prospective clients who that's actually their issue, is that like they'll maybe do something like a content day and then they have so much content they just like don't know what to do after that, and they're like, oh, I have all this like stuff, like now what kind of thing. So definitely like planning for that's helpful. There's definitely some common mistakes to avoid for something like this. Again, like that's kind of one of them is like the lack of preparation. Like that's huge. I would say like that's why Maria and I like couldn't do this by ourselves, is like because we would just be like, oh, but you kind of keep us definitely in line on like what we should be doing. Then like not planning in advance. This is something I'm so guilty of, guys, if you're listening to this, because I am extremely pressure prompted, and so I can do things last minute, but I can also kind of talk about anything. Like, give me the mic, like, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to party. But making sure that we've planned our messages in advance helps a lot, because I don't just show up being like, oh, I have some things I want to talk about. We're like, hey, these topics are trending. That has really helped with our download numbers. If you are a podcaster, listen to the episode that came out with Ben and I about doubling our downloads. Like, I think us being really strategic on topics was like so key to that, rather than me going on being like, hee, like, this is what I'm up to. Like, apparently you guys do like that. But what I will say is us being like, here's how we downloaded or doubled our downloads. That's the stuff that really moves the needle. Overshooting without strategy, that's a big one, I think, too, because it's easy to like get overwhelmed with like, oh my God, there's like so many things we could shoot, or we could do this, or we could do that. But if you actually don't know what you're going to use it for, I don't know about you, Ben, what do you think about this? But like, it's probably not worth doing if you don't really have a plan for it.
Yeah, I think like any content is good content, but I think that unused content is obviously useless.
Yeah.
And some content is just easier to use. Like, there are certain things that we've done in the past that I've had a harder time using, because it was like, you know, it was just gifted to us from like a speaking event or something like that, or something, but I wasn't a part of like the strategy behind it or like the thought behind it, and oftentimes you weren't either. And it's kind of like, I'm kind of like, I want to use this, like, we have this content, like, it's like not bad, but it's like, well, I don't know what the angle is. So I think like, make it easy for yourself. Like, if you plan out what you're gonna shoot, you already know, you're like, oh, I'm so excited to have a podcast on this, or I'm so excited to have these reels because it really speaks to like this launch I'm about to do for this product. Like, it's like, you want to be excited to use your content and to post your content, and like, you're not going to be as excited if you feel like, if you're kind of like, that was hard to title, or like, I don't really know what the point of this reel is, but at least I've showed up, kind of thing. Like, it's like, you know, showing up once is definitely better than 0 times, but you want to show up with intention and be like, I'm excited to put forward this message. And you can't really do that if you don't have, if you haven't put the thought into that messaging. So, yeah.
100%. And honestly, like, I find that all the time, especially I get a lot of like speaking content, and sometimes I'm kind of like, oh, like, what am I going to do with this? Or how are we going to use this? And it does sit in our bank a little sometimes, where we're like, okay, we'll figure out something for this at some point. The other thing is forgetting BTS. You're so good at reminding us about this, but like, the behind the scenes is so good. One, I think, like, from an authority perspective, like, people seeing you doing things, building hype around stuff. Like, I love to film like myself recording podcasts and then like posting it. Or I just interviewed Virginia today from Acre 75, and she took a picture with her mic after and then immediately posted on social. I was like, oh, so good, right? So, like, you know, not forgetting to show the behind the scenes, and also waiting for perfection. Like, waiting for that perfect camera, that perfect mic to get started, the perfect space, your space to look good, like, whatever it is. Sometimes people like the messy action. I'm a big fan of the messy action, but Ben less so.
No, I mean, I still think like people get totally caught up on like everything not being perfect. But I think that if you like put any ounce of thought into something, and just put your best foot forward, like, it's gonna be good. So
yeah,
I think that I totally agree with that. Like, there's so many reasons to not film today, but like, then there's gonna be reasons to not film tomorrow too. So
totally.
Yeah.
Any last tips that you've got for folks about content days? For me, the big thing is just committing to it is the big piece, is that like making the time. I know that that's something that a lot of people have trouble with as entrepreneurs, right? Like, we're like, oh, I don't have time to make content. I don't have time to show up. And I definitely fell into this trap too. Like, when we started talking about doing this, the big reason behind it was I was preparing to have a baby. So we like wanted to get a little ahead on the pod. But the other piece was it was kind of hard to wrangle me and Maria together. And we wanted to make more content, wanted to be more founder focused. And so it's easy for us sometimes to be like, oh, like, it's just the content day. Like, we could move the content day. Yeah. But I feel like we've been really committed. Like, they haven't moved very often.
No, a few times, but we've rescheduled them.
Yeah.
And I think that, it comes down to like, how serious are you about growing online? Do you actually like, do you want people to know about like the founder behind like your brand? Do you want to have founder-led content? Like, that's what's connecting the most with people right now. And I think that, one of my favorite episodes I think is that you've done on the podcast is like why you should show up even when you're busy kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's such an excuse. Like, you know, like, in that season where I'm making no sales, that's when I'll show up, and like, that's great. Like, you should, but like, people do want to hear from you when like things are moving and like you're learning things right now, and you'll actually learn the most too when you're actually taking the time to settle down amidst the craziness and be like, where am I growing right now? What are people like? wanting to learn from me.
Yeah.
Like, what am I learning myself? Content's like a good way to kind of like do check-ins with yourself, like be reflective and also like give back in terms of like where you're growing and where you're learning. You don't want to wait till you're bored to do that.
Totally.
It's just not going to be as good. It won't resonate as much. And there's definitely a time and place to, filming content in the slow season, but you're going to want it in like the crazy times too. And this has been the way that we've been able to do that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be this far ahead on the podcast. We wouldn't have the content that we have banked.
Yeah.
And our social presence wouldn't, I don't think it would be quite where it is today. It would still be there, but yeah, not at this level. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, like when we talk about that, because I'm a huge believer that people love to work with booked and busy people, right? Like, I wish they didn't, because there's people out there who need work. But like when people are booked and busy, we often feel like this like pull towards them, because even though we don't know anything about their work, because they look busy, we attribute success to that. So even we went on a team trip to Nashville last year, me, Maria, and Lorena, and we had a lovely time. But like on that like main strip, there are all those bars. And like some of the bars were like absolutely jam packed, and then there were bars that were like completely empty. Yeah. We weren't going into the empty bars, even though we were looking for like seating or whatever. I was 6 months pregnant. I was like, please let me sleep. So many stairs everywhere, but but we were going to the bars where we felt like there was like excitement and movement, right? And so I think it's the same thing in business. Like we don't want to be in the empty bar. We want to be, in the busy space. And so even making content that gives that perspective that things are busy for you, while people sometimes think the opposite.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, well, guys, I'd love to hear from you if you're going to try a content day. If you are doing content days, what's working for you already? Maybe you have a cool hack or tip or tool that we could learn from. We've loved our content days. We're already planning them into 2026 and beyond, and excited to kind of keep them rolling, Ben.
Yeah, you don't need a team for it too. Invite friends in, invite guests in. If you're a solopreneur, do it with another solopreneur. You can have joint content days.
Yes.
And share with each other. So I think this is a good thing for anybody to consider. Even if it's not every month, maybe it's once every other month. But yeah, I think it can help you level up your content this year.
Yeah, love it. Okay, give it a shot, guys, and let us know.